Imagine a sound capable of instantly freezing the blood in the veins of dozens of people on a sun-scorched basketball court in the heart of Compton. It's not the squeak of sneakers, not the dull thud of a ball against asphalt, and not even the cry of "foul." It is a dry, sharp crack, like a gunshot, of a palm against skin, followed by a dead, vacuum-like silence that covered the neighborhood like a thick blanket. The calendar reads August 1967, and we are in a territory where the laws of physics give way to the laws of the street, and hierarchy is determined not by money, but by the ability to dominate. In the center of the court, under a hoop with a tattered net, stands the king, a 7-foot giant nicknamed Slam, whose body is covered in sweat and tattoos. He has just kicked out all the other players, declaring that this is his time and his hoop. No one dares to object. Slam feels like a god of the asphalt jungle. He savors the fear in the eyes of the teenagers, huddled against the chain-link fence. But suddenly, the idol of his power is disturbed by a figure that seems completely alien here. Along the edge of the court walks a short guy in a tracksuit and dark glasses, moving with that feline, lazy grace usually found in predators. Well-fed, but ready for the hunt. This is Bruce Lee. He's just taking a shortcut. He doesn't look at Slam. He isn't looking for trouble. But for the king, this ignoring becomes an unbearable insult. Slam decides to teach the upstart a lesson. He snatches the heavy pebbled basketball with his massive palm, winds up, putting all his mass and malice into it, and hurls the projectile with the force of a cannonball directly at the back of the passing Bruce's head. The ball flies with a whistle. The spectators gasp, expecting to see a man fall face first into the asphalt from a blow capable of causing a concussion. The trajectory is perfect. The impact is inevitable. But here, something happens that makes your brain glitch. Bruce Lee doesn't turn around. He doesn't duck. He simply, as if swatting away a fly, raises his right hand up and back into the blind spot. Smack. The ball, flying at the speed of a baseball pitch, slams into his open palm and freezes. It doesn't bounce. It sticks to Bruce's hand as if coated in glue. The inertia of the blow is instantly extinguished, flowing through the master's body into the ground. Ask yourself honestly, how is this possible? How can you catch a projectile you can't see with a hand that is relaxed? Slam stands with his mouth open, his hand still extended after the throw, and in his eyes reads not understanding, but superstitious terror. But to finally finish off your perception of reality, I want you to look at Bruce Lee's left hand. This is our narrative dagger. In it, he holds a rolled-up old morning newspaper. Look at it. It isn't crumpled. It didn't flinch. Bruce caught a lethal throw with one hand, without even tightening the newspaper in the other. This is a demonstration of such total control that it is more frightening than any aggression. Bruce slowly turns to the giant, holding the ball on an outstretched hand like a trophy, and his face remains absolutely calm, as if nothing happened. At this moment, Slam realizes he has challenged not a man, but a phenomenon of nature, but his pride, inflated to the size of a basketball, won't let him back down, and he takes a step toward his catastrophe. To understand why Slam, this king of the concrete jungle, didn't run away the very second his ball was caught with such unnatural ease, you need to look inside his head, poisoned by adrenaline and the street code of honor. For him, retreat was equivalent to death. He saw how the teenagers at the fence were looking at him. He felt his authority, built over years of fights and victories, beginning to crack under the heavy gaze of this calm man in glasses. Slam decided it was a trick, a fluke, a gimmick. "Did you lose this?" Bruce asked, and his voice was quiet, but it cut through the street noise like a scalpel. He held the ball on his palm, offering it to the giant, but in this gesture there was so much hidden threat that Slam roared with rage. "Give me the ball, shorty," he yelled, the veins in his neck bulging, "or I'll dunk you into the hoop instead." The giant lunged forward. 250 pounds of live weight, multiplied by rage, turned into a battering ram, meant to sweep Bruce Lee off the face of the earth. Ask yourself honestly, what would you do? Drop the ball and run? Try to cover up with your hands? These are victim instincts. But Bruce Lee was no victim. He didn't run. He did something that made Slam's brain explode with confusion. He bounced the ball off the asphalt. Boom. The sound was heavy, rhythmic, hypnotic. The ball bounced straight into Bruce's hand. Boom, boom. Bruce began to dribble. He moved not like a fighter, but like a basketball player, but his movements were faster than any NBA pro. Slam, at full speed, tried to grab him with his massive hands to break his spine, but Bruce vanished. He stepped aside, making a sharp body feint, and simultaneously zipped the ball between the giant's wide-set legs. This was the Santa Barbara effect in action. A street fight turned into a humiliating masterclass. Slam, having lost his target, flew forward by inertia, nearly falling, while the ball, hitting the asphalt behind his back, returned to Bruce's hand with perfect precision. The crowd gasped. It was mockery. It was a dance of death, where the partner was not a man, but gravity. Slam turned around, his face turning purple, his eyes bloodshot. He realized he was being outplayed on his own court, with his own ball. He no longer just wanted to beat Bruce. He wanted to destroy him. He clenched his fists, forgetting about basketball, and attacked again, but now he moved more cautiously, like a wounded beast ready to pounce. Bruce continued to dribble the ball, and this rhythmic sound, boom, 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 became a metronome, counting down the final seconds to the climax. He looked at the giant, and in his glasses was reflected not the face of an enemy, but the trajectory of movement he had already calculated 3 steps ahead. Slam swung for a blow that was meant to be fatal, but he didn't know that Bruce was waiting for that exact moment to turn the basketball from sports equipment into a weapon that hits harder than any brass knuckles. In the second when Slam, having completely lost his mind from humiliation, put all his mass into a monstrous right hook aimed at Bruce Lee's jaw, time on the Compton court collapsed into a single ringing point. That very visual silence arrived, when the street noise disappears, and only the whistle of a fist cutting the air remains. Do you expect Bruce to dodge? To block? That would be too simple. Bruce did something that contradicts the self-preservation instinct, but fits perfectly into the logic of his madness. He used the ball as a shield. At the moment when the giant's fist was supposed to touch his face, Bruce sharply raised the ball, putting it in the way of the blow. Wham! The sound was dull and heavy. Slam's fist slammed into the rubber surface, and the elastic recoil of the ball worked like a spring, throwing the aggressor's hand back with such force that he almost dislocated his shoulder. But that was only the beginning. Using the inertia of the bounce, Bruce spun on his axis, turning into a whirlwind. The ball, which a second ago was a shield, now became an extension of his hand. Bruce didn't hit Slam. He slammed the ball against the asphalt so hard that it, bouncing off, flew between the legs of the disoriented giant, forcing him to instinctively jerk and lose his balance. Slam stumbled, his massive legs tangled, and at that moment Bruce vanished from his field of vision. He was behind the enemy. The spectators watching this stopped breathing. They saw Bruce take 2 quick, feline steps to the hoop. 1, 2, and suddenly he took off from the ground. Ask yourself, is it possible for a man 5'7", tall, to fly so high without a springboard? Bruce Lee at that moment violated gravity. He soared into the air, flying over the ducking, lost Slam like a hurdle in training. In flight, at the highest point, he switched the ball from his right hand to his left. It was a move worthy of Michael Jordan, but executed by a kung fu master. Slam, trying to figure out where his opponent had gone, began to turn, but it was too late. Bruce's shadow covered him from above, and at that moment a sound rang out that put a period on the argument of who was king here. Crash! Bruce Lee slammed the ball into the hoop with monstrous force, hanging on the rim for a fraction of a second. The net shredded, the metal structure groaned, and the ball, flying through the hoop, hit the asphalt and bounced straight into Slam's head, who was looking up at the sky at that moment. Bonk. This sound wasn't loud, but it was final. Slam sat down on the asphalt, dazed, with the ball now rolling peacefully at his feet. He was destroyed not by a punch, but by flight. He lost not to a fighter, but to an athlete who surpassed him in his own game. Bruce landed on his feet, softly, silently, and in his posture there wasn't a drop of tension, only absolute, icy control. But the most incredible part was still ahead. Look at his left hand. What is he holding? The answer to this question will make you believe that Bruce Lee was not a man, but a supernatural phenomenon. In the second when the echo of the ball hitting the hoop died in the ears of the spectators, and Slam, the former king of the court, remained sitting on the asphalt, clutching his hand to his bruised head, the world around froze in a state of absolute shock. But the real blow to the crowd's psyche was not the dunk, but one small, almost imperceptible detail that turned a sporting triumph into a mystical revelation. Look at Bruce Lee's left hand. In it, tucked between his fingers, was still that same old morning newspaper, our narrative dagger that he brought onto the court. It hadn't fallen. It wasn't crumpled. It hadn't even moved. Imagine, a man made a jump, flew over a 7-foot giant, slammed a ball into a hoop, and all while continuing to hold a newspaper as if he were simply reading it at breakfast. This was proof of inhuman control, a division of consciousness where one part of the body performs a feat while the other remains at rest. Slam looked at this newspaper, and in his eyes, full of tears of humiliation, read a superstitious terror. He realized he had lost not to a man, but to an element. Bruce Lee stood over him, his breathing steady and his face was calm, like a Buddha mask. He didn't finish him off. He didn't laugh. He slowly walked up to the giant, who still couldn't stand, and reached out his hand. It was the gesture not of a victor, but of a teacher. "The ball doesn't lie," Bruce said, and his voice sounded quiet, but every word fell into the silence like a stone. "And neither does gravity. You are too heavy to fly, and too proud to learn. Learn to fly before trying to knock down a bird." Slam, whose will was broken by this jump, mechanically grabbed Bruce's hand and allowed himself to be pulled up. He stood, stooped, huge and pathetic, next to the small man who had just shown him what true power is. Bruce turned and walked away, unfolding the newspaper as he went and pretending to read the headlines. The crowd parted before him like the sea before Moses. No one dared make a sound. They had seen not just a fight, they had seen a lesson that is impossible to forget. Bruce walked away, leaving behind a ruined reputation of a street king and a new legend that would be passed from mouth to mouth in this neighborhood for decades to come. But in his eyes, hidden behind his glasses, there was no joy. There was only the weariness of a master who once again had to prove the obvious to those who only understand the language of force. When Bruce Lee disappeared around the corner of the street, leaving behind only a cloud of dust and the echo of his last word, a silence reigned on the Compton basketball court that could be cut with a knife. Slam, the former king of this asphalt kingdom, still stood in the same place, clutching the ball that now seemed to him not a symbol of power, but a heavy stone around his neck. The teenagers, who were previously afraid even to look him in the eye, now looked at him with pity mixed with contempt. On that day, the legend of the invincible giant died, and a new one was born, the legend of a small man who knew how to fly. Slam realized that his strength, which he was so proud of, was only an illusion, a soap bubble that burst from a single touch of reality. He threw the ball to the ground, and it rolled away, lonely and unnecessary, just like its owner. Slam never came to this court again. They say he went to a monastery or became a security guard, but no one knows for sure. He vanished, dissolved into the city, unable to bear the weight of his defeat. And now I want to ask you, the viewers, the witnesses of this story. We are used to admiring physical strength. We love to watch big guys break walls. But Bruce Lee showed us the other side of the coin. He showed that true mastery is not brute force, but control. Control over one's body, over one's emotions, and even over the objects in one's hands. That newspaper, which remained untouched in his hand during the jump, became a symbol of this control. It wasn't a trick. It was a philosophy. Whose side are you on in this eternal dispute? On the side of brute force, which tries to suppress everything around it, or on the side of true mastery, which uses the opponent's strength against them? Who was Bruce Lee that day? A hero who punished a bully and restored justice, or a provocateur who humiliated a man for his own pleasure? Write one word in the comments, master or provocateur. I will be waiting for your answers, because it is in them that the understanding lies of what true power is, the ability to destroy, or the ability to create, even in the center of chaos. And did you notice that Bruce didn't even take off his glasses? Write whether you think this is ultimate skill or just luck.